Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So can you make that sound one more time? Chyna sipping wine, everybody. Welcome, everyone, to the whole ball of wax. My name is Andrew Sellers, and with me I have...
I'm Chyna Benzine now, I guess is what
No
you
longer-
call me.
No longer Chyna Pate.
Nope, it's bye. Bye, Pate. Done with you. Just kidding. Sorry, my dad might listen to this. I liked my last name. This is a great last name too, though, so...
Well, and that's because of congratulations on your recent marriage to Craig.
Thank you. He's a really good one, and I think I'll keep him. We're like 2 months in, and I mean, I'll give it like another 8 months. We'll see.
And then you'll make a post-marital, initial marital assessment.
Well, I gotta get the alimony. That's the reason anyone gets married, is so that they can get divorced and have the alimony, right?
That's a good reason.
Is that... Did I read that wrong? Was that... No.
No, your contract was good.
Okay.
It was tight. It
Awesome.
was airtight.
Wonderful.
So Chyna got some wine. I'm sipping on your beautiful cinnamon moonshine. Cinnamon moonshine.
It's called apple pie.
Oh, I'm sorry, apple
where
pie.
I'm from, in Kentucky.
It's appropriate. I like it.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's really good. We got that as a Christmas gift. Early Christmas gift.
I like that. Ooh, actually, that just totally invented an excuse to ask you something about yourself, plus tie into a point I was thinking of. Being from Kentucky.
Yeah.
Do you have can you recall any idioms or even singular words that might be considered unique to where you grew up that describes something particular? If not, it's whatever.
Two things spring directly to mind, neither of which 100% fit into what the question was, but two things directly spring to mind. I found that something that was really common in the area that I was from, which is northwestern Kentucky, is all like carbonated beverages being referred to as Coke, and then like you have to specify what kind of Coke. I spent a couple years in high school working at Wendy's, and it was just all the time, like, you get I don't know,
Sprite, Coke.
Someone would come through the drive-thru or whatever, and they would order their meal, and they'd be like, I want the number 5 with fries and a Coke, and then I'd be like, okay, and then I'd be like, yeah, and I want a Sprite with that. Like, it was to clarify, to add on information to, yeah. Sprite is a type of Coke, in case you didn't know. And then number 2, one thing that is common to kind of all of the South as a whole, is just like following up something that could be construed as offensive or like a mean thing to say about someone. If you're gossiping about someone, you might be like, maybe like trying to think of something that isn't too terribly inappropriate. You would just follow up.
You can say whatever you want. There
Okay.
are no limits.
Yeah. And she's just such a whore. Bless her heart. Just bless her little heart. And yeah, bless your heart is just sort of a cover up. It's like a pity cover up for any mean thing that you might ever want to say. Man,
that is some grade A passive aggression.
Yeah, people in the South, nice to your face, rude behind your back. And honestly, I kind of, if you're going to be mean to me, be mean to my face. I prefer the more direct style that you find here in the North and in the Midwest.
I think that's pretty accurate. I think a Chicagoan can look and say, hey, Chyna, sometimes you piss me the fuck off.
I hate your stupid face.
Fucking cut it out.
Oh, God, I want to just punch you so hard right now.
No, I can agree with that.
Bless your heart.
Bless your heart. Sometimes you're a fucking asshole, but bless your heart.
Bless your heart. Yeah.
I think here we should start saying that. I think that would be hilarious to just start like adopting foreign to our state idioms and anything, just general phrases, just to screw with people, to
Absolutely.
just sort of like throw them off. I think that'd be hilarious.
We're gonna bring Bless Your Heart to Chicago. It's happening. Today is the day.
Sounds like a Sufjan Stevens album or something.
It does. Oh man.
So you were right in that it doesn't exactly fit into it. Although I like that. I'm glad that I asked because I didn't know. Like I've heard the Bless Your Heart thing. Like that's definitely not new to me. But that.
But
like,
the connotation, because most of the time you think, oh, bless your heart. That's like, oh, that's
good.
Such a sweet thing to say. But it's not necessarily. I mean, you can mean it genuinely, but sometimes it's just to make yourself, to kind of redeem yourself after being an asshole. So.
I like that, though. That's good. Not that it's a good thing, but I like that that's like, that you understand that. So you can be like, I see you. I can catch you in your bullshit.
Yeah.
So again, it's not quite what I was looking for, but again, I still dig it. So what I was thinking of, though, in regard to like unique things that describe particular things, and you could actually argue that something like Bless Your Heart describes a particular kind of person.
Yeah.
What I was thinking of is, I believe it's a German word, and I believe it's said Schadenfreude.
Oh, yeah. Wait, don't tell me what that is. No, wait, tell me what that is. I've forgotten.
Schadenfreude is the reason why America's Funniest Home Videos exists.
Oh! It's
for the most part,
being in like secondhand embarrassment because of something that happened to someone else, or like...
it's less that and more. I'm glad that's not me. That's funny, and it's because it's not me.
Oh, okay.
So seeing people like flop on trampolines or like slip on a slip and slide when they're trying to do a handstand or something,
right? That
can be, and when it's not out of pain, like when you know the person's okay. I think there might even be a word for laughing people out of pain. But just that like I'm glad it's not me. If I remember correctly, is Schadenfreude.
Yeah, I can't think of anything like that to our region, and I think that's one of my biggest issues with the American language in general, is that you find those words in a lot of other languages. Maybe it's just because I am an English speaker, but you see those lists pop up on the internet all the time, like 12 words to describe common, I don't know, I'm not a BuzzFeed title writer.
You're not a human clickbait article.
But like you see like articles that list these words in different languages that mean these like big complex things or describe these like really common human emotions that in English it takes us like 10 words to say the same thing, you know. I wish that we had more of that. I need more of that.
No, I agree. And one of the things that I like that's not it's abstract, but it's not describing a super complex abstract concept. Right. One thing, and I actually talked about this with a friend of mine last year on her podcast. Just something that I love talking about is the phrase is musical Frisian.
What's that?
So musical Frisian is the actually, you know, this would be way more fun to walk you through it. Who do you really like? Solo artist, duo, trio, band, whatever, music related.
So not currently because they're not a band anymore, but for a while I was super, super, super into the Civil Wars. Have you heard the Civil Wars? Beautiful, beautiful
Tragic.
Male-female duo, incredible harmonies, incredible musicality. He plays the guitar, she plays the piano. They're gorgeous and in every sense of the word.
And it's a terribly sad story about why they broke up because no one actually really knows. It was sort of a Jack and Meg White situation.
Yeah.
Kind of.
Irreconcilable, like, differences of
creative opinions, I think is what they claim.
Like that.
Something along those lines.
And it's a shame. And it's also a shame that just because they're both two good-looking human beings that people were like, oh, they were in love and they can't make music anymore because they're both married to other people.
Right.
You know what? Men and women can be friends and not want to bone each other all the time.
That's true. The example.
I mean, maybe that was it.
The example is currently in this room. There's at least one example.
We are
friends.
We are friends.
We're friends.
Yeah.
It's the thing.
And that's it. Yeah. My mom's best friend is a man, and no one has ever believed that that they've
there
been
wasn't
able to just
some-
be friends.
Yeah, it's like,
Purely
yeah.
friends.
That's its own. Maybe that should be our next, right after this, maybe that should be our next topic about that perception and how insane that is. I'm down for that.
I have a lot of
So we'll-
conflicting opinions in myself about that, actually.
No,
I'd
that's
love to talk
fair.
about that.
So we'll put that on the back burner for a few
Okay.
minutes. So within them, for the sake of yourself, think of whatever song that you, whether it's the one that you heard first or listened to the most, or you like the lyrics the best, whatever.
Yep.
The thing that you listen to the most that you'd feel like some part of my life could have this as its soundtrack, and then it fits.
Mm-hmm.
And you get that goosebump, willy-nilly, oh my, just
Oh, yeah.
like you're shuddering inside. Nothing's actually happening to you, but mentally speaking, you're just getting this flood of dopamine, basically.
Yeah.
That's musical Frisian.
What an awesome word. Yeah. What, or 2 words.
It's the sensation that you feel. I think the exact definition is the positive sensation that you feel when you're listening to your favorite music.
That's incredible, and I can think of so many different songs that make me feel that. And it's not even like one song that every time I play it I feel the same thing. Sometimes it catches me off guard. Sometimes it's never a song that I've heard before, and it just like strikes this chord in me, and I never had a term to describe it until just now.
And something that I like about this is, and I'm curious to see if you agree or if you have more to add to it, something that I like about that term and the concept of creating terms for things that are felt by people universally, not necessarily every single person ever, but enough people to say that there's some amount of consensus that multiple people can say, I've had this experience.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I think a label is kind of demeaning. Defining the span of experience when it's proper in a situation like that, I consider that proper. It's not being reductive. I think it actually lets you put a pin on it and put it on the wall and say, I know what that is.
Yeah.
And it makes
yeah.
it way easier to talk about it.
Absolutely. And I think that it's dependent on the type of experience, because there are some experiences that are highly variable. Like you can't really, and people have been trying to do it for hundreds and hundreds of years, but you can't really define love because everyone experiences love differently. You know, everyone's relationships are different, even ones that seem very similar. There are just like really tiny nuances that change the whole structure and change the whole interaction. And so it's a hard thing to define for humanity as a whole, but there are like smaller sort of things that not everyone experiences necessarily. I'm not sure that everyone experiences musical Frisian. Okay. but when you do, it's this sort of like, it's almost like an involuntary thing. It's not a thing that's been constructed by man. It's a thing that happened and we made a word to describe it. And I think that that's different. I think that you can make words for some things and not for others, even try as you might.
I agree.
Yeah. Because everybody, it's a different stuff.
Well, that'd be great if we could come up with like, not tiers, but just variables of like going off what you're saying, love.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's just what I can think of right now. There's love between siblings, parent and child, friends, former friends, new friends. I'd say that the difference between new friends and old friends is also way different.
Absolutely.
And I don't necessarily say you could love a super like recent friend, but maybe you do.
But maybe that's kind of the thing. Maybe in the traditional definition of love, you would say, oh, you know, you don't know that person well enough and you can't really call that love, like you like that person or whatever. But maybe it's more complicated than that. If we're going to have this like broad, all-encompassing word for this really complex, nuanced thing, then maybe like the sort of like instant bond that you feel with a new friend or something, maybe that is love, just in a different capacity, in a different way. We need more words for stuff, man.
One of my goals in life, and I've done it with a few, I'm unfortunately didn't remember to write any of them down because I don't even remember them, but I've been making up words for stuff.
Gotta get more words for stuff.
I want it. I want to be able to say That's the thing. That is, and people go, oh, I get that. That's like one of the things I came up with. Funny enough, I don't remember what the word that I ended up like picking my suffixes from, but my intention was about coming up with a word that describes being able to understand someone's situation without having lived it.
Yeah.
So it's a sort of like that's technically a type of empathy. Empathy is knowing how someone else feels because you have felt that before.
Yeah.
But I don't think all forms of empathy, like we're talking about all forms of love, are fit into the same catch-all. I think there are definitely some forms of empathy. I've experienced forms of empathy where, like a friend of mine, the best example that I think I can give is a friend of mine who survived cancer, who had something like a 90% success rate of lived. And I actually made a short, like 4.5 minute documentary about her called Deathless on a different channel of mine, if anybody wants to look that up. Nice. That was great. She's a really good friend of mine, and I was really happy about shooting that. And when she was going through it, there were some days where most days I was really upbeat and I was very happy as she was, but the handful of times I saw her when she was down, even when she was doing well, she'd still be down just because it's so intense.
Right.
I felt that way too, and I didn't get cancer. I wasn't going through chemotherapy, and I didn't then survive cancer and go into remission. Like, I didn't experience any of that, yet I was able to feel that with her.
Yeah, and it's not even like you could throw that under it. It definitely is more suited under the umbrella of empathy, even though you haven't experienced that same situation. More so that it could be thrown under the umbrella of sympathy, because you're not just like, oh, that sucks for you.
Right. That's, oh my God.
You're feeling it way more than that. You are feeling, yeah. You need a word for that.
You know what we could call something like, thinking about musical Frisian, about when people are at a concert, going back to music, it's sort of a type of musical Frisian, but applying it to a large group of people, you could call it like, Frisian en masse.
Oh yeah.
When people are when it's like, it's a very respectable crowd and everyone is shutting the hell up and isn't blurting out lyrics, unless it's that kind of show, in which case it's appropriate.
Right.
But like at the type of show, like the first time I saw the XX, if you don't know who that is, find them, listen, they're beautiful, they're quiet and amazing. In my opinion.
But my opinion's right.
I'm just saying, that's just what I think. It's
just what I think, and if you think different, then you're wrong. Whatever. It's no big deal, but you're wrong.
But the first time I saw him, everyone was dead silent. People just it was at the Aragon here in Chicago, and it was a huge number of people. I don't know if it sold out, but if it didn't, it looked it. And everyone was freaking quiet. No one said a damn thing. And I thought that was amazing. And I feel like it's because everybody was on the same page that night. And I feel like everyone was experiencing the same musical Frisian at the same time for not necessarily always the same reason. Certain songs can mean different things to different people, but the feeling, I feel like, was in large part the same.
Yeah, I like that word. I like that term that you just created. And I enjoy those experiences too, where... And you're right that it doesn't necessarily have to be one of those shows where everyone is like completely silent and just in the moment, because I've been to concerts before. I can think of 2 different shows that Craig and I have been to where I think this was sort of the case, but in really different ways or pretty different ways. One of them was when we went to a venue that I can't remember, but we saw an artist from Texas called Shakey Graves. Have you ever heard of Shakey Graves? Oh, yeah. I love Shakey Graves. It's so good. We saw him, and a lot of the charm of his music is that it is dynamic, and it changes, and it's not... It changes, and it's not always the same, is what I was going to say. That's dumb. That's the same thing twice.
But that's kind of accurate for some people. We could go on that topic too, but sorry, I'll let you continue.
But so part of what he does to, it's a very methodical way of performing to like keep the audience on their toes and to pull them in and to change the way that they feel about his songs and stuff, is to mess with the tempo and with the even just like the melody in some cases. And he really doesn't ever, I've never seen like two recordings that are even remotely similar of the same song. That, and when we went and saw him play, you know, I'd listened to these songs over and over again in different recordings, and I had like different versions that I preferred, but in the moment it like sucked me in, and it was the same song, even though it was a different song, but it was the same song, but it was a different song. And as a result, the audience can't be involved in the same way that they can at like an Adele concert or a Taylor Swift concert, because you can just sing along. You know the melody, you've heard the song, they're performing it in essentially the same way.
Right.
They're not changing the lyrics or anything. But the audience was still very sucked in, and so it was a pretty quiet show, like you said, and everyone was just 100% enthralled with the spectacle that was going on with this one-man band playing like drums and tambourine with his feet and playing the guitar and sometimes maybe the harmonica or something. And then we also went to a different show that, do you know The National?
I do.
Yes. National, one of our favorite bands. Mine and Craig's song, our song, is a national song. And in that case, it was definitely more of a show where they were playing the songs similar to how they were recorded, and the songs, like versions that you knew and stuff, and people were singing along. But it was still this, like, this experience where everyone was in the same place. Everyone was focusing in the same way. It wasn't, there wasn't anyone that was like being disruptive or being rude or anything, partially because we paid a lot of money to be there. That's the point of that. But yeah, two very different experiences in a lot of ways, but that similar sort of audience feel, which is super, super cool when you find it.
I love it. It's my favorite.
Mm-hmm.
The most unified I've ever gotten, to close on this particular topic, is the, at least on my end, is Cloud Cult. Anybody's know them. I love them. They're incredibly cool people. I've had the pleasure of talking to a couple of them every now and then.
Nice.
And they have a song called Love You All.
Never heard that one.
It's great. It's super great. It's very simple. The whole song is literally, I love my mother, I love my father. When it's my time to go, I need you to know I love you all.
Oh.
And it's so, it sounds like, okay, cool. Like that's, the whole thing is basically a refrain, but it's way more than that.
Mm-hmm.
Just the way it builds and the intent behind it, and how legitimately good all of these people are. Because if you look into what Cloud Cult really is about, like their philosophy behind what their name means, and the label that the lead singer Craig Minowa started his own label called Earthology Records, and why that's all good. It like creates like recycling programs and stuff, and they make all their CDs out of sustainable material and all this cool stuff. Like that
is awesome.
Oh,
I never knew that.
Yeah, no, basically all Craigs are great. That is
the lesson that we learned today.
So that's that. And I've seen him, I don't know, 4 times. And one time I saw him at Lincoln Hall, and I Love You All came on. It's one of the things that they always play. They kind of have to.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have to, but they do, because it's just one of those things. And everyone always gets very gushy about it, and never in a cheesy way. But this one time, the whole room, mostly strangers, like there were groups of friends or whatever, but the whole room, somebody was like, arm over shoulder.
Oh, I love that.
And everybody was swaying. It was like this, like, again, not kumbaya. It was like this legitimate, like, everyone in the room was like, love. That's it.
Moments are so fucking cool too, when you have, and it's not always like around music or something. Sorry, there's vegetables cooking in the oven. These moments are not always surrounding music or surrounding like typical what you would expect, but it can be like, I don't know, it can be any, sorry, everything's falling apart. It can be any sort of moment where you just are drawn in, and you form this like sort of instant bond with people that you've never met before, and you're helping each other out, and you know, as soon as you leave that place, that relationship dissolves, but it was like a really real thing for a second.
A legitimate
single
thing. Serving friend.
Absolutely.
Moment.
And I feel like we need to open ourselves up. I think that a lot of times people aren't open to those experiences. I think that they could happen way more often if we were open to the experience of interacting and engaging with people that we don't know at all. And so I want to get to know each and every one of you for 30 minutes and then never talk to you again, is what I'm trying to say.
That's an excellent life goal. That's
Okay.
not bad.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
No real relationships, just meet every person in the world and be best friends with them for 30 minutes.
That'd be good.
Yeah.
It's funny you say that because you know what? Something that I want to do on this podcast in the future. Thing called Podcasts with Strangers.
Ooh, I like that. Ooh, like someone that you just don't know.
And I fully admit this. I am straight up pulling from Humans of New York.
Yeah.
Because I bought both of his books because they were on sale on Cyber Monday.
Well, he's freaking brilliant.
And it started off, to be perfectly honest, I actually didn't like Humans of New York at first because I thought it was pre-caption.
Uh-huh.
And I thought it was this like.
Oh.
I presumed, and I shouldn't have. I thought it was this sort of upturned nose. Look at New Yorkers. Look at these people from New York.
I didn't even ever know that he had a pre-caption phase. So that would definitely, I can see how that would like leave it open to interpretation a little too much.
Right, and I failed because I didn't look into it, and I never looked at the page. I just saw people sharing it, and it was almost always when he was showing someone super fashionable. So I thought, oh, okay, cool. Everyone's obsessed with New York. Good for you.
Right.
Like, there's nothing wrong with New York. It's more of people's like overexposure with it, and I thought that's what that was, and I was way wrong. Because he initially was just this guy who bought a camera, wanted to get better with it, and wanted to shoot street photography. Said, I'm going to take, I think he said 1,000 portraits of just people. And then he slowly started to talk to the people more. And that generally talking to the people, going from the funny thing that the guy who was wearing a pink feather scarf and candy stripe high heels or whatever, to the librarian who said, I used to be a pyrotechnician or something. Like, whatever, that, like, little things like that became what it is now. And he's basically I wouldn't call him a photojournalist because that's not what he is. He's like a photo interviewer?
Well, it's in the same way that people who started making content for YouTube took traditional media and flipped it on its head, and it's kind of impossible to define a lot of what they do. He's like a photojournalist, but like a new media photojournalist or something. It's not in any sort of traditional definition because a lot of what he does fall under that umbrella, but then it totally doesn't either.
I think you just invented a new major at Columbia, new media photojournalism. I deal exclusively on Instagram.
If they could just forgive my student loans, that would be great.
I think you got something here.
I really do. I'll sell it to them in exchange for the total amount due on my student loans.
I think you'll get it.
Okay. All right. I'll call them tomorrow.
So thinking of that, I was like, that's something that I wanted to do. And actually, the way we're recording right now, I know you guys can't see it because it's obviously just audio, but what we have, that's the microphones are recording to, is just a field recorder. It runs on AAA batteries or AA batteries, and I can take this setup anywhere. I can fit it all in a backpack. I can strap the microphone stands to the side of the backpack, and I can get on the train and be in the Himalayas and do a podcast. And I can be in the subway and on a train car, and granted that'd be god awful for audio, but if say the train car wasn't moving, like for whatever reason it was a stationary train car, and like I could do that anywhere. Yeah. And that I come up with weird goals like that in my life. I'm always trying to come up with like cool weird stuff that doesn't quite exist. And this setup exists, but only in this configuration because I kind of figured it out. And I thought to myself, what could I do with that? In general, it started with I just wanted to do podcasts on a location in places that I liked. And then when I got more into Humans in New York, I went, ooh, how cool would it be to have people come in for 10 minutes, 15, half an hour, however long they feel like talking about it, whatever it might be, whether it's themselves or just literally anything. That's sort of the point. Yeah. Is that there's no exact direction. It's just more about seeing who's willing to talk about something.
Yeah.
And I sort of fell in love with that idea, and now I'm still trying to figure out exactly how I'm going to go about it. But
I think that sounds like an awesome idea. And it brings to light a question. I always wonder, sort of like a hypothetical question. I'm always really interested in what Brandon, I think his name is, the guy behind Humans in New York. I always wonder what his process is, because he gets into people's lives. Yeah. And so, like, what does he... Obviously, he starts out with, like, some sort of variation of, can I take a picture of you?
Right.
It's going to be shared on the internet for millions of people. And then, like, but how does he get to the real, like, meat of the discussion? He's got to have some questions prepared, because no one's going to be like, sure, you can take a picture of me. My dad died 10 years ago and it ruined my life or something. That's never going to happen. So I would love to see, like, a list of questions that he has on standby to sort of, like, start to open people up.
It's funny you asked that, because that's exactly what I asked myself, and I recalled that I watched the first few minutes of it and failed to finish it, so I'm going to find it. He has a video where he's talking about that very thing.
Well, crap.
No, that's good. No, that's you're asking the exact right question. Okay. That is the question to ask, because whether or not, like, if I wasn't doing this, I'd probably still be interested to know that, because it's so hard to get people. There's some of my friends I have to pull teeth on.
Oh, and my gosh. I have so many friends that I don't even know. I don't know you at all. Mm-hmm. I don't know these people.
And granted, everyone's entitled to their privacy, even if you are friends. And if someone doesn't want to talk about something, then sure, like, we as individuals are not entitled to anything.
And
in
it's
someone
so
else's
much
life.
easier to open up to a stranger who you likely are never going to see again. Even if it's going to be posted on the internet, he'll have a lot of photo series that are, like, a couple of pictures of the same person, and it's, like, just their hands or something.
Oh,
but
yeah.
But to have that, like, cathartic release of opening up to a stranger when you feel like there's something that you can't say to a friend. I'm sure we all have things that, like, I'm not going to say to you, you're not going to say to me or whatever, but, like, if I'm approached by someone who's just like, talk to me. Do you want to talk? Be like, yeah.
Yes, I do.
That sounds pretty great. This is why therapy exists.
One of the best things I ever saw in Humans in New York, just as another side note of it, is this guy I believe he had a mohawk, and he's dressed in all studs and big combat boots, and he says, I did something like, I think he said 6 or 7 years in prison or something. He says, I almost killed a man. And that stage when you're like, oh, wow, okay. And he asked him, well, what happened? And he says, there was this guy who wouldn't leave my 10-year-old or 12-year-old sister alone, and was constantly trying to invite her to parties, so I beat the shit out of him. Mm-hmm. And I almost killed him.
Yeah.
I don't condone violence.
At the same time.
But that's, like... I'm like, and I'm not glad you went to jail, dude, but I kind of can't be mad at that.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Just stuff like that. And I think to tie back into what you were saying before about, like, people needing to have... And then back to the musical discussion, I think experiences like this do help people, total strangers, have a sense of connection.
Yeah, for sure. And that was something that I wanted to bring up as soon as you started saying that. I was thinking, like, I think it's just hit me how much of a service this one guy has done to humanity, because right now, as we're recording this podcast, he's doing this series on a lot of the Syrian refugees who are waiting for, or just now finding out that they've been accepted and they can come to America and stuff. And if you read the comments, it's not like any other community really on the internet where, you know, CNN posts an article and it's all this, like, hateful stuff and trolling and stuff like that. It is largely just this incredible group of a couple million people who are so open and loving and respectful and welcoming, and it's just so incredible to see all of these people, Americans in the traditional Humans of New York series or whatever, sharing these, like, some of the most intimate parts of their life, some, like, really deep secrets, and some of this, like, stuff that they don't feel comfortable telling to anyone else, and not being met with what you would expect the reaction to be. traditionally.
Prejudice and fear and
hate and judgment. Like it's none of that. Usually it's pretty much all like, we get it. We've been there.
And even if I haven't, I understand.
I want to help you. I want you to get better. I wish you the best. It's awesome.
No, I agree.
So good. And I think it has helped us, a lot of us who have followed Humans of New York for several years, to really be like, oh shit, these bodies moving around past me outside every day, they are human beings with lives just as complex and rich as my own, with secrets just as dark as my own or darker, with families and kids and pets, and they deserve to have a good life, and they deserve to be happy. And even people who do bad things sometimes deserve to a moment of at least consideration. You know, you gotta like.
I want that on a shirt.
Yeah.
Especially that last bit.
This got deep. Oh, man. Yep.
Like the metaphorical ostrich burying his head in a well deep.
Yeah. Absolutely. That deep. Woo. Woo.
Do you want to take a quick break? We're at just over a half an hour.
Yeah.
All right, then we will.
We'll be back after these messages from our sponsors,
which are none. Noah's Arcade.
I'll give you $1, and then I'll be your sponsor, and then I'll have a 10-second spot that's promoting nothing. It's just 10 seconds of silence.
Ready, go. Done.
Awesome.
All right, we'll be back in a sec.
Well worth $1. Wouldn't it be nice to fly away? Wouldn't it be nice to fly away? Fly away, so far away. Fly away, so far. Wouldn't it be nice to fly away? Fly away.
Both times we start with you drinking wine.
I know. I'm so whiny.
You're drunk.
I'm not.
Go home.
I wish.
You are home.
And
you're not drunk.
I'm home and I'm not drunk. We got more wine.
Sounds like you clicked. I was going to say, it sounds like you clicked your heels 3 times.
Who knows what'll happen with the rest of the night? We got like mountains of wine in this house. Craig and I really have our priorities straight, in case you're wondering. Yep.
It's just boxed wine from Target.
No.
Make up the walls.
Boxed wine from Benny's. Thank you very much.
Oh, I'm sorry, but that's what they do, sell it cheaper.
If you've never heard of, what is it? Boda Box is actually really good boxed wine. We served it at our wedding, and it's great.
Life tips from China.
Absolutely. And you know what? It's like $16 for a box, but you know what's in that box? The equivalent of 4 bottles of wine.
Holy God.
That's $4 a bottle, and it's good. It's like $10 bottle wine quality.
Wow.
Usually for similar quality wine, I'm spending like $9-10 on a bottle, which is pretty cheap. But getting it in a box, first of all, you open the box and it's good for weeks. With a normal bottle of wine, you open it and you have to finish it within like the first day or maybe the second day, or it goes bad. And that is the end of my diatribe on box wine. It's good.
Once again, life tips from China.
I like that that's a segment. Yeah.
Oh, that could be, you get 2 minutes of what you should do with your life.
I think that's great.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
So to go back to something that we had touched on for a second that we were talking about, we should talk about.
Yep.
Something that I've never really understood. Like, I understand it, but I've never experienced it or ever thought this way about the question that some people ask. Like, I've seen a video on this where it was just these people asking random people this question. Can men and women ever be just friends.
Yeah. It's fascinating.
To just start with my 2 cents, and I'll keep it short.
Yeah, no. Keep it however long it needs to be.
My whole life, all I ever try to be is like, at least, okay, maybe not my whole life, because, 6-year-olds usually don't have this sort of like self-awareness, but like I feel like I've always tried to be not terrible.
Mm-hmm.
And part of being...
Great goal, by the way. If anyone's wondering, life pro tip from Andrew here. Don't be terrible. My me version, even more me version of that is don't be an asshole. Yeah. Don't be an asshole. Be a not asshole.
Mm-hmm. Be the anti-asshole.
Yeah.
Be the one who smacks them down and puts them in their place and tells them why they're wrong.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I feel like part of that goes with, and this goes for any women who do it too, because I've known women to objectify men, that goes with not objectifying people you might find attractive, period.
Mm-hmm.
And that doesn't necessarily mean if you find someone attractive, you're objectifying them. I just mean to say,
sure.
It's never been my agenda that's like, if I being straight, I've never thought, ooh, you're a woman, I will consider.
Right,
like
it's not like any person of the opposite sex or any person of the sex that you're attracted to that crosses in front of your path. You're like, 8 out of 10. Oh, 6 out of 10.
Yeah.
Oh.
And that's not, I mean... No, it's just not something I've ever done. Like, for me, it turns into like, sometimes I'll be somebody I meet for the first time. If I'm single, I'll be like, "Ooh, what's it?" Yeah.
Absolutely.
And then other times, it's something that happened over a period of a couple of years where I went, "Wow, I don't actually kind of realize how much I'm kind of attracted to you, and wish that I was single when you were single, kind of, because the last relationship I was in was crappy or whatever," something like that.
I think that we're touching on a really great point that, like, objectification of individuals is not equivalent to finding someone attractive, wanting to ask someone out, wanting to be in a relationship, wanting to have relations, whatever. Those two things are not equivalent. And I think that that's the thing. Objectifying a person is kind of a difficult thing to define in a practical sense, but it is one of those things that I feel like you know it when you see it. If you're like, sitting on the beach with your bro, I don't know what guys do in their free time when they hang out.
I want to hear Chyna's understanding of bros.
If you're like sitting out in a public place with your bro and you're like, you see some ladies walk by and you're like, oh, yo, man, I'd really like to tap that rear of that woman. And I think that is kind of crossing a line, maybe. I don't know what I'm saying right now. I'm not exactly sure what I'm getting at, but I do think that there's a line there. You can find a person attractive, you can talk about finding a person attractive and not cross that line into objectifying them. But when you're talking about like using someone without taking into consideration like the human being that they are, then I think that that's probably where it crosses the line. But that's a difficult thing to define, because I think that there are all of these like gray areas maybe where it's just situational and you know it when you see it. I
think the easiest way to define it, still keeping it a broad stroke, because like I said, it depends on the situation. I'd say that's objectification is being reductive based on context.
Yeah.
Because you can like, I think a pretty good, hello Mitzi, yes.
Mitzi, you want to be on the adorable podcast? Mitzi is my dog. She's 8 years old and adorable.
And she's
always wanted to podcast, but she's just way too quiet.
She's also a little too short.
And she's a little too short. She can't reach the microphones, try as she might.
But no, I don't know if this is a great or perfect example. But I kind of feel like an example of you're not necessarily objectifying. Like I said, it depends.
I'm sorry.
What?
Mitzi is pushing her ball around because she wants you to throw it, and she keeps kind of tapping the mic stand, and so it's making sort of like an echo sound.
All right, throw it about a quarter foot.
I was just hearing it in my headphones, like tap, 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 tap.
It's the way people talk about celebrities. It's the way, particular to me, it's the way I talk about Olivia Wilde.
Sure.
Which I brought up briefly in the last episode I did with Jake.
This brings up a great point. Objectifying someone doesn't necessarily you don't even have to, it doesn't have to be in a sexual context. It doesn't have to be in a way, like, you might not even be attracted to the person necessarily. You're hitting on something here, because a lot of times, like tabloids and things will talk about celebrities instead of their achievements or what they're working on, like especially female celebrities, so-and-so gained weight, or so-and-so hasn't lost the baby weight, or so-and-so did lose the baby weight, or so-and-so cut their hair, and what do you think of that? Who wore it better stuff, where you line up celebrities wearing the same outfit, again, usually women wearing the same outfit to different events, and you pick who looks the best in it. And it's not in an overtly sexual way necessarily, but it's the same thing. It's defining someone by their physical qualities or something in a sense.
In a comparative sense.
In a comparative sense, in a way that I don't know. Everyone, you got so much more going on than that.
No, right.
It's fair to boil people down to those couple of things.
Right. And that's, I think it's okay if you're just making a single statement of Olivia Wilde is attractive, Chris Evans is attractive.
Sure.
And you're not saying, I think that's the difference. I think it's the difference between, I know that you said it, but just to make it even simpler, to say it's the difference between saying they are this thing and they are only this thing.
Yes.
You can be this one thing, and if attractive was one of those things, good for you.
Absolutely.
But objectifying is saying all you are to me is this thing. The only thing you ever will be to me is this thing. The way I perceive you, and the only way I'm ever going to perceive you, is that thing. And I'm wondering if a certain amount of some people's thoughts on, again, the like, is there always some amount of sexual tension, not even necessarily romantic tension between genders? Does part of not an objectifying mentality, but some sort of one-way perception have a hand in that view? Because I feel like it might. Maybe,
and I think that a lot of people will say, like, well, okay, maybe the woman thinks that they're just friends, but men can't not feel sexually attracted to a woman, or they can't like be objectifying her or whatever. And on the one hand, I've seen like examples of this play out in my life. Again, my mom and her friend, I don't want to sound like that naive person who thinks that they know everything about their parents' lives or anything, but I'm really very confident. My mom and I are very open with one another, and I'm really, really, really sure that in this case, she and her friend are super, super just friends. I don't think that either of them are sexually attracted to one another. I've never seen any indication of that in my whole entire life, and it's a difficult thing to hide. But having said that, I also think that getting back to like the heart of the argument, can men and women be just friends? I think that there are cases when absolutely men and women can be just friends, but I think that this gets brought up a lot in the context of people being in a relationship, like my girlfriend is really jealous of my best friend who's a female, or like this female friend that I have, and the friend and I hang out all the time and whatever, and my girlfriend is really jealous, and she doesn't need to be, because I'm not like dating this, I never dated this girl, and I'm not attracted to her. And I think that I think that this sort of situation gets brought up all the time. And while I think this is getting back to when I said I have somewhat conflicting opinions about this, while I think that men and women are absolutely capable of being just friends, I also think that those friendships, out of necessity, grow and change as you bring people into your life. And if I have like a really close guy friend or whatever, but then I start dating someone and the relationship makes the person that I'm with feel kind of uncomfortable. He feels uncomfortable with this guy friend and I like hanging out alone together or something like that. I think that that's something to be taken into consideration. I don't think that it's necessarily, you have to make choices and you have to make concessions. And I think if you're in a very serious relationship with someone, it's all about making sure that if you're in a partnership with someone, your choices need to be comfortable with the other person. The things that you do by necessity, the person you're in a relationship with needs to be comfortable with the things that you do. And if you're making them uncomfortable, on the one hand, you want to get to the motivations behind that, but on the other hand, like, they don't have to be right, and they don't have to necessarily be able to like explain themselves sometimes. I don't know. It's a hard topic to get to the bottom of, but I think that, like, in the example that I gave, if there's a guy or a girl or whatever and they have a best friend of the opposite sex and they start seeing someone and it's a serious relationship and the other person is uncomfortable, not blanket uncomfortable with them being friends, because I think that there's some weirdness that would be something that would need to be gotten to the bottom of.
Sure.
If you were like, you can't see this person anymore.
Yeah, no, that's
because it's weird. That's weird. Yeah, you can't do that.
No, that's flipping it back on them.
But if they were like, not in an I don't trust you way, but just in a way that, like, you know, I'm not comfortable with you guys hanging out at your house by yourselves. It's just, you know, I think that that's a concession that could be made. I think that that's a compromise that might need to be made if you're serious about the relationship.
Well, then if there's legitimate concern for the situation, I know that I did when I was in high school.
Sure.
Without getting into that, just, I
Mm-hmm.
was definitely in that situation where I told the girl I was dating at the time, I was like, yeah, no, I'm not comfortable. It's funny you say that because it was exactly what was happening.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't feel like I was being unfair.
No, and I think, I didn't want to say this, but I think a lot of times if there's a situation like that when the other person feels uncomfortable, and it's not for like any sort of like just across the board, don't be friends with any guys because I'm your boyfriend, don't be friends with any other guys and that's wrong and stuff. If it's like just this one situation, I'm just picking up something weird, and I think that people tend to be kind of perceptive, and I think that if you feel like there's something weird about the situation, then maybe that's because there's something weird about the situation.
Unless you're completely off your rocker.
But I think that
the gut tends to be pretty, not necessarily exact, but strong enough in feeling that I think people could make. It's not an informed judgment, because it's not, or a decision or whatever, but like I had a fishy feeling in, like, exactly, once again, what you're talking about. Like, I had weird feelings about that situation, and I ended up being right.
See?
I found out I was right. And that, like, there's no guarantee that I was.
No, absolutely not. But the thing is, like, you don't know the whole situation, but I think that's where it comes into, if the person that you're with, if you've got this friendship with this person of the opposite sex, and the person that you're seriously in a relationship with has feelings about it that make them uncomfortable, and they want you to kind of like distance yourself a little bit, not hang out in certain situations where you might be on your own or whatever. I think that that's fair, because maybe you as a person know, I'm not doing anything wrong and I'm not attracted to this person, but maybe she's not picking up on it, or maybe the person you're with isn't picking up on it from you. Maybe it's something that you're not even picking up on. And I think a lot of times if you see something, say something. That's what the thing is now. See something, say something.
Unless you're objectifying at the beach.
Yeah, unless you're objectifying at the beach, which is totally acceptable under all circumstances.
Always.
Talk about those titties or whatever. I can't believe I just said titties. You know how it is.
Like you do.
Like you do.
Oh man, a moonshine. Okay. It's probably a good thing. Well, you down to completely change gears?
Sure.
I found a list.
Yeah.
Things that I was not aware of this list. I'm probably going to mispronounce this guy's name. I think it's Prust. Prust? Damn, I never...
You know how I know how to say Prust?
I don't.
Love, it's Prust, right?
Prust. Okay.
It's Prust. It's because of the Gilmore Girls. We've been watching the Gilmore Girls. You know what? That show is so freaking good. It's so good. Shout out to the Gilmore Guys podcast, because, oh my God, they analyze the crap out of that show. It's amazing. It's a wonderful companion to have. And the Gilmore Girls is so awesome. Rory, one of the two main characters, super nerdy, and she was reading some Prust. So.
Okay, well...
Back to the question.
Well, no, you've informed me. You've let me know that Gilmore Girls has some legitimate weight to it.
And you know what? It's on Netflix. You can watch it anytime.
Sponsored by Chyna.
Not
Netflix.
Ad for the Gilmore
Chyna.
Girls, a show that is canceled.
So, Prust's Questionnaire. My brother-in-law told me about this. He's my editor and sort of creative wall bouncer. I can throw things against his brain and see what comes back in a graphic novel that I've been writing for the past 2 years.
Nice.
And that's a fun process. That's its own thing. And I got stuck at this one. I'm not at a juncture. I'm just trying to come up with things to develop the character for. And he goes, "Oh, try Prust's Questionnaire," and it is 35 questions that you should be able to answer about your character that will help you create a characterization for this fictional person that you're coming up with. But what kills me is that this is there are some questions on this list that I've never really asked myself
about yourself.
Oh wow. So I was curious if you'd be down for hitting a few of these, because there are some.
Absolutely.
There's one that's really I've definitely talked to people about this before, that's what is your idea of perfect happiness? And that's
Ooh. Like in a snapshot, if you took a photo of it, or over my lifetime.
There's no guidelines for it. And that's, I think, part of what's interesting about all these questions, is that the scope can be limited to something very small and immediate and tactile and physical, or it can be super conceptual and, like you said, over the length of a lifetime.
Yeah.
And more event-based as opposed to material-based.
Oh, man. I think I tend to be... I'm not saying that I'm not a complex person. We're all complex human beings and stuff. But I do think that I am also a pretty simple person in terms of what it takes to make me happy. So over the scope of a lifetime, my idea of perfect happiness would be not worrying about money, not incredible wealth, but not struggle, have a couple of kids, a couple of years apart, normal day-to-day struggles, no really serious illness or tragedy, no losing a spouse or losing a kid or anything like that, and just having the time to cook great meals, and keep up with the laundry. I like doing those things And oh man, it looks like the American dream, freaking white picket fence and all of that.
It's a amazing. It's a great thing to want.
And you know what? And the thing is that I've had to kind of reconcile like wanting something more. It also involves a lot of like travel and seeing things and meeting new people and different experiences in different countries with different cultures and stuff. But I've had to kind of reconcile what I've come to terms with, what I want out of life, with what I feel like I should want as a pretty progressive person. A lot of what I actually want falls back to like the traditional American dream and traditional gender roles and stuff. I like cooking and I like cleaning and I like being in charge of my household, and I want to be a stay-at-home mom at least for the first couple years of my eventual kids' lives, you know. And being a feminist has taught me a lot about how you don't have to completely put aside those things, those traditional things. It's just all about choice, which is how I've come to terms with it. But yeah, that's kind of, it sounds pretty idyllic to me. And I think that I'm not saying that like I would be perfectly happy in this perfect world that I've just spun out of my imagination, but no one can be perfectly happy ever at any time. So that is where I see myself being the most me. And then on like a daily level, it's like thunderstorm outside. I'm in my pajamas. I've got a heated blanket, hot tea, probably a glass of wine, Grubhub delivery, and Netflix. That's a perfect day. And Craig's there, obviously, because what's the point of Netflix if Craig's not there?
Chyna, you use the phrase, I'm generally a simple person. That is way more complicated of an answer than I definitely had for this one. Look, and not that it was like, I'm sorry, not that it's complicated, detailed.
Yeah. But I think I'm simple in my desires. I don't have these like grand ideas.
I
want to be the president of the world. And I want to wear Nikes every day. I don't know. This is not sponsored by Nike. We're not a sponsored podcast.
I want to wear Nikes every day. That's an amazing quote out of context.
I feel like that's probably someone's idea of like the perfect dream.
I want to wear Air Jordans, a fresh pair of Air Jordans every day of my life. I'll never wear, that would be awful because the shoes would never break in.
How wasteful.
I know. Unless you donated them, in which case you're a great person.
You can make yourself be a materialistic person that seems like a great person by donating your day-old pair of shoes.
Some people do that, like Steve Jobs with his silver Mercedes.
What?
A story that I read forever ago was that Steve Jobs, while alive, this is a major digression from what it was we were talking about, but
that's a podcast world for you.
What I had read, and if I'm wrong about this, someone call me out. I will gladly be told I'm wrong. I don't care.
You're wrong.
But okay. So
I don't know that for sure.
He always drove this one model of Mercedes, or this line of Mercedes, because apparently it changed over a period of years, and you'll see what that means in a sec, and never had a license plate. He lived in California, Silicon Valley, duh.
Of course.
And apparently in California, there is a particular grace period law about license plates, which I'll get to in a moment. He would have this Mercedes that he really liked and never wanted to have to put money into it for maintaining it. He just wanted a car that worked. But he also wanted to park in the best parking spots. So he bought this car and went back to the dealership, or maybe his initial time buying the car or something, and said, every 6 months, I want to give you back this car. And you give me back a new car of the same model. And you get to sell a car driven by Steve Jobs.
I mean, if you're that famous that a dealership can sell a car that you drove for, and it makes it worth it for them to just give you another new car, you know what? Like, just do it. Just do that.
See, you say that not knowing the last bit of information.
Oh, okay. This is going to flip it all upside down for me.
Oh, yeah. He wanted so he could park in handicapped spots.
Oh, Steve Jobs.
Because there was a grace period, that law I was telling you about, where you didn't have to have a license plate in your new car for 6 months.
Yeah.
So he could park everywhere super close and not get a ticket because there was no way to ticket the car.
Here's the thing, man.
If
you are able-bodied, which he was at one time,
most of the time,
park wherever you can park, and then walk into wherever you're going. Is he? No. And then at the point at which he got sick enough that maybe he needed to be in a handicapped parking space, he could have gotten handicap tags, you know?
That was a thing I read forever ago. And again, if I'm wrong and I failed to Snopes it, then let me know.
I'm going to pretend that this is totally true because I never think about Steve Jobs, and so it doesn't matter.
Sure.
In any way.
Sure.
But, yeah. Wow. What a jerk.
That's a thing.
What a jerk. That's 100% true. Write about it on BuzzFeed and share it on Facebook and like and subscribe.
Speak ill of the dead.
And rate us on iTunes or something. I don't know.
Rate us on iTunes. What is that sound? And it's gone. I don't know what keeps happening. I apologize. This whole episode, something weird's been happening with everything. I don't think it's you. I apologize if you hear any of that garbage. Anyhow, getting back to it.
Yeah.
To reflect your answer, basically mine was for the idea of perfect happiness was to have music for the rest of my life.
Okay. To have music?
Yeah, both listening and making.
Okay.
And that's because
But can't you do that?
No, I can, but that's my point, is that it's something like for me, specific to me, it makes sense because I know it's attainable.
Mm-hmm.
And music has helped me in more ways than one. Even before I was writing stuff and like got into that mode. Mm-hmm. Music has helped me get into really good headspaces, has helped me when I want to be sad. Sometimes you need to be sad.
Oh, yeah. I'm a total proponent of needing to be sad.
And there are whole albums that just like are super downtrodden that I like, that I'm totally okay with being sad about if I need to be in that place, because some things you need to get over and other things you sort of need to let yourself feel. And I feel like that listening to certain... Oh my god.
It's super weird.
I don't know what's happening. That listening to certain kinds of music can help make that be a thing.
Absolutely.
So that's a thing for me. So again, I have a much I don't need food. I have a guitar.
I'm really simple, but I'm totally complex, guys.
It sounds like the ideal tweet from a millennial.
Yeah.
I'm like a grain of sugar. I'm a complex carbohydrate. So let's see. There are a couple of this whole list. I could do a whole episode on just this list.
That would be great.
Which I may just at some point. I would not be against it. Here's one that I really like.
Mm-hmm.
On what occasion do you lie?
Ooh.
I really like that.
Man. This is difficult. Of course, everyone wants to say, I don't lie.
Oh, and that's when everyone's full of shit. And see, right there, you could say, when I'm embarrassed. Because I think people don't want to admit that they lie because it's embarrassing to say that you do. Or maybe not everybody feels that way, but...
No, I mean, I think that I pride myself on being a pretty honest person, and I like to just get things out in the open because I've learned through experience that the times when you like try to hide something, it always comes out. It always comes out. Or you have to come out with it eventually. It's way worse than if you just said what you were thinking initially, or said what you felt, or said what happened, or whatever. And so I pride myself on being a very honest person. But sometimes it's easier to like be tactful if there's situations where like a white lie can maybe like trying to think of how to phrase this. Like just not saying, oh, hey, I can't talk to you on the phone right now because I don't like talking to you. You know, but, oh, hey, I'm busy or whatever. I think that there are some times that being a completely 100% all the time honest person would also make you a hurtful person if you just like, if you said those things. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, I agree.
If there's like a situation where someone invites you out or whatever and you don't want to go because you know that they're like kind of a difficult person to be around and they're really loud or they have a tendency to get like super drunk and then you have to take care of them and so you don't want to put yourself in that situation. None of those, especially, I mean, the drunk thing isn't a thing that's happened to me personally. But
I was about to say, are you like rattling off names in your head right now?
No, I was actually trying to specifically come up with situations that haven't happened to me so no one can like pick themselves out of this. No, but if it's like a situation like that and say you've got the friend that always gets really drunk and then you end up having to take care of that person. And you're like, you know what? I just don't have the energy for me tonight, in me for that tonight. It's so much easier to be like, you know, I don't feel like coming out right now or I don't feel like coming out right now.
Right,
or whatever.
And arguably that's not a lie. That's just not saying everything.
Yeah.
Because
it's
saying
not the entire truth.
Right, and that's fine because no one's entitled to that. If you don't want to do something, you are fully entitled, unless you promised someone you're going to do something.
Right.
You are fully entitled by way of logic.
Right.
Not even whether or not it's the right thing to do. Like, logically speaking, you can say, I don't want to.
Right.
If you just don't.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Well, and I've definitely discovered that, like, people make up lies a lot in different situations where they put way more into it than is necessary, and a lot of times, like, you know, I don't feel like coming out tonight, or I'm not feeling well, or whatever is just as adequate and is totally true. If I don't feel, if my drunk friends ask me to come out, I can say, you know what, I'm not really feeling up to going out tonight. And the reason that I'm not feeling up to going out tonight might be because I know that I'm going to have to end up taking care of this person at the end of the night or whatever. But essentially, it's the same thing, you know? So,
I can agree with that, yeah.
Yeah.
That's funny because that's basically what I was going to say, is when it's getting out of something that... My version was much, much simpler, and I like how you put it because it's way better than what I was going to say. It's basically when I want to get out of something that doesn't matter.
Yeah.
That's the bottom line for me, is like if it's really just, I'm like,
Absolutely.
That's a... That's what it feels like inside. Yes, with the sigh at the end. Just like...
Yeah.
All right, let me pick another one out here.
Should we have interim music?
I do.
And we're interiming until he finds question. I didn't do it long enough. Sorry.
Oh, here's a good one.
Okay.
And actually, we could totally close with this. This is the last question.
Awesome.
I already told mine, and I'll recap it just before you give yours so that
okay.
people don't recall. It's a one-liner. What is your motto? Mine is don't be an asshole.
Ooh, that's a great motto. Huh. What is my motto? What is my motto?
And it's a hard thing to figure out because it's like a motto doesn't necessarily have to be short, but they tend to be quotable, like short.
Yeah.
You can usually, not always, but I would argue that usually a motto is something fairly succinct.
There's this thing that my mom, I've seen it like tossed around other places, but I first heard it from my mom, and initially when she said it to me, I was, probably a teenager, and I was like, oh God, Mom. But in the time since then, I found myself like sharing this with other people, and I say it a lot, and sometimes it'll occur to me in a moment where like things aren't necessarily going my way, or I don't feel good about myself, or I don't feel happy with whatever is going on in my life, or whatever. And that is, it'll be fine in the end. If it's not fine, it's not the end. And I think that is awesome, because it's a reminder that like, even if your situation gets really low, that everything is a matter of like ebbing and flowing, rises and falls, and
flux.
Yeah, everything is constantly in flux. It's constantly changing. And so, yeah, it's a great reminder that like, man, I can be having a super shitty day, but that doesn't mean that tomorrow is going to be a shitty day, and it also doesn't mean that tomorrow has to be a shitty day. Like, it kind of is what you make it. I think all of these things are comprised into this one idea that like there's an equilibrium, and peaks of excess happiness and valleys of excess sadness or tragedy or whatever are not the equilibrium. And so it all comes back to this place of like constants or whatever in the end. I don't know how eloquently I'm putting this, but basically, yeah,
life
like,
is a sine wave.
It's gonna come back to this point of equilibrium, this point of like neutrality, and it'll be fine in the end.
I like it.
I like it too. Apparently.
It's another
I keep coming back to this idea, and I think it's really effective in my life. I think when I think about it, it either brings me back down to earth when things are really going well, and it doesn't let me get too big of a head, or it's like, okay, this is going to get better. Boom.
Words of wisdom from Chyna Benzine.
Do.
Just full of a cappella music for the show.
I feel like you need some music sometimes. Some interludes.
I've been considering adding some intro, outro, and in between parts.
Oh yeah, you need some intro music and some outro music for sure.
Hey Craig, you're in a band, right?
Yeah. That was all we wanted. That was it.
Nothing. I have no follow up for you.
Yep.
He's lying.
How do we end this? How does this? What's the process here?
I don't actually have one yet either. I'm still relatively new to this,
okay.
So forgive me, everybody, for not. If this isn't the most eloquent thing ever, but thank you all for listening.
Yeah.
For our cool multi-topic, human-based discussion.
And thank you for having me on. This was awesome. I love hearing my own voice in headphones. It's like instant gratification hearing myself talk in stereo. It's wonderful.
It's a fun time. It's the only it's the only reason why I'm doing it. It's a public service.
Now I want to start a podcast.
I'm getting volunteer hours for this from an official 501c.
No, really?
No, I'm kidding.
Oh, okay. I totally believed you.
I'm just going to start telling people that from now on, and be like, when they want to do podcasts with strangers, it's like, this is for a nonprofit. And they're like, which one? Yeah. I was like, I don't know what it's called yet. Just, do you want to do it? Yeah. Sure. Makes people feel good.
Absolutely. Oh, man, I thought I was helping the world.
You are.
Okay, good. All right, wonderful.
Thanks for listening, everybody. I'm Andrew.
I'm Chyna.
And I will see y'all on the flip side.
Peace.